Hi, welcome to Wings for Life. We're so happy you're with us tonight. We're going to have just a great speaker. Crystal interned with us, and we just loved having her. And now she runs this incredible program helping people with addiction, and it's called the Turquoise Lodge Hospital in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this is a wonderful program. She is, I should say, a licensed alcohol and drug abuse counselor. She's been in the field for 18 years. And this program at Turquoise Lodge helps people, individuals, deal with their addiction, and it's an individualized program. And it's really wonderful. And she connects people with resources and support systems to help people in recovery. And when we're not dealing with COVID, we're always invited to go over and talk about Wings and share with all the participants. So it's really a wonderful program, and I know we're all going to learn a lot about addiction. So help me welcome Crystal Lill. So Crystal, come on over.
Thank you for that, Anne. I appreciate it. So as you said, my name is Crystal, and I currently work at Turquoise Lodge. One of the things that I think is very important whenever I start any kind of programming with people is to talk about a recovery space. So today we will start with that. And one of the things that we do a lot of at Turquoise Lodge is skill building. So I'm going to start out with a quick little skill, and we'll also end with a quick little skill. So this one is called 5 Candles Breathing. So I'm going to ask everybody to put their hands up, and you're going to visualize flames on the tips of each of your fingers. And what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in, inhale through our nose, we're going to exhale and blow out that flame, and we're going to trace our hand all the way down. We're going to do that across the board, and then we'll get started. So, thank you for doing that with me. So that is a quick and easy breathing exercise to pull out of your pocket whenever you need to. And obviously we had our hands up for presentation purposes and to learn it, but you can do this in your lap and nobody has to know you're doing it. And what it's doing is it's helping us focus on our breath. It's helping us calm down. It's helping us be in this moment. And as we're touching on our hand with our other hand, we're touching on pressure points, and that definitely helps us. So today we are talking about building your recovery support team. And one thing that stands out whenever somebody makes a decision to make a change is that we're not quite sure how to do that. So we're going to start out by talking about risk factors. And these are the things that we may be noticing within ourselves or our loved ones may be noticing. And we may be hearing people tell us, hey, this has been going on for a while. So some of those risk factors that might be apparent to you and the people around you are isolating, not wanting to spend time with your loved ones, or intentionally avoiding get-togethers. We may feel increased depression or increased anxiety. Sometimes it's just increased emotions and we may not be able to place what those emotions are. We also may be avoiding loved ones and our responsibilities. We may see an increase in missed appointments. We're not communicating with people. We're not calling to let people know we're not able to show up. Not taking medications or any kind of prescribed treatment with our providers. We may be lying, or there may be an increase in lying. Oftentimes, we'll also see that people start stealing to support a habit. We may be making excuses, and it may not even be big excuses. It may be little things like, no, I can't go because I have to be over there. That's not specific. It's not telling us exactly what you're doing, but you are making an excuse to not be with others. Also, we'll see that people start deflecting when asked about concerns. Someone will say, I'm worried about you, or I'm seeing this, and we'll change the subject, or we'll actually get defensive and turn it on them. We may be switching addictions or substances. Maybe I'm not drinking, but I started smoking something that I hadn't been smoking. Or maybe the way I'm doing things changes. So I may have started inhaling a substance and I may be injecting a substance now. Also, we'll see risky and dangerous situations. An individual may begin placing themselves around people and places that they typically wouldn't because they're under the influence or they're seeking their substance of choice. And we also see a lot of blaming others. It's not my fault, it's the cop's fault, it's my dad's fault, it's everybody else's fault. So those tend to be some of the risk factors. And sometimes those are behaviors that we've been seeing for a little while and we're not quite sure what to do with. So once an individual has decided that they have a problem with substances, one of the things that we ask is that you allow yourself to start reaching out for help. This part of the process tends to be one of the most difficult parts of the process. However, it can only come from you. Nobody else can make that decision for you. So we can have loved ones encourage us. We may have POs, we may have CYFD or caseworkers or other people in our life encouraging us. And it's wonderful if we have those supports, but ultimately each individual has to make a decision to make a change. And once we have decided we want to make changes and we're ready to start asking for help, some of the things that we can do are learning how to self-advocate, which means using our voice. And that may be easier for some than others. Keep in mind this is a process and it gets easier. The more you do this, the more you see that people are there to help you and support you, the easier it is to allow people to be a part of this. One thing that I encourage everybody to do as soon as possible is to make sure that you apply for insurance if you don't already have insurance. Make sure that you are regularly updating addresses and phone numbers and that people have a way to contact you. Here in New Mexico, we're very lucky in that we have care coordinators that work through the insurances, as well as peer support workers. So that would be the next step, is making sure that you are connecting with your insurance provider and asking to be connected with those resources. The care coordinator is an individual who knows a little bit more about what's available, what resources are available for you, and what your insurance can help you with. They will also connect you with a peer support worker if that's someone that you would like to work with. And this is an individual who is in recovery themselves. They have a period of recovery and they've been certified to help others in recovery. So that could be someone that you give a call to, someone that maybe helps you with appointments or figuring out some of the systems that can be a little bit difficult to navigate. Another thing that is very important to know is that insurance will help with rides to appointments, medical appointments, and treatment appointments. So oftentimes people feel that even if they had support or even if they had appointments, that that's not something they're able to do. When you work with these individuals, they can help you make those calls and set up those services. Another thing that is very important to do is make sure that you have a phone that has minutes available. Oftentimes people will give numbers for loved ones or message numbers, and resources aren't able to connect with an individual. So making sure that you have the appropriate resources contact you is a matter of having a number that you can actually follow up on. So if you leave a message number, make sure that you yourself are able to call back in a timely manner. Another thing that I would encourage is if you are currently incarcerated, make sure you connect with your caseworker. Let them know that you are looking for resources. Ask for resources. A huge part of this process is asking and asking and asking. It is a process. So follow-up is important, making sure that you are letting people know that you're looking for specific services and following up when you do get those resources. If you don't get resources, ask someone else. Make hotline calls, actually connect and reach out and keep letting people know that you want help. If you're involved with a PO or CYFD, view them as part of your team. Sometimes it can be very difficult to connect with these individuals because we feel like they're out to get us. The reality is they are there to do a job, but they're also your allies. They are there to be a part of your team and help you move forward, and they're not able to help you if they don't know what's going on. So although I know it can be difficult with the legal concerns and what do I tell people and what do I not tell people, when individuals are struggling with an addiction and they are open about it, not only is it a relief to you, but people can see what's going on. They already know what's going on. When you tell them, they can actually start helping you. So that's something that I think is very important as well. Another thing to keep in mind is that we want to sign releases of information. So a lot of times family members or people that are working with an individual want to call resources and ask for help. We're not able to provide resources. So whether it's a treatment provider like Turquoise Lodge or whether it's another individual that you're working with in the community, everybody has releases of information. This is very, very important. It's a part of HIPAA and it's also a part of 42 CFR Part 2. So what all that is meaning that your information is protected and we can't share that without your permission. So if you decide that you want someone to be a part of your team, then you would sign a release letting the individual that you are working with know who you want to give permission to, a specific amount of time if you feel that it's a short period of time. If not, it's usually 6 months or a year till it expires. And then also what kind of information you want shared. So whether that's your partner, whether that's your pastor, if that's someone that's a part of your support system, whether it's your PO, whoever it is. We do strongly encourage that you try and have what we call a continuum of care, meaning that you're going to have individuals who are part of your team connecting with each other. So that may be your doctor, that may be your counselor, that may be a therapist. But when they're all able to speak to each other, not only does that help support you, it also gives everybody more information to help you moving forward. Another thing that I would encourage is talking to your doctors, your dentist, and your pharmacy if you are struggling with addiction, and letting them know that you're moving forward as a person in recovery. Sometimes that can be difficult. It feels like we're ratting on ourselves. It feels like we're telling on ourselves. But what that's really doing is that's helping you support yourself, not the addiction. When you let people know that you're in recovery, they will help you by making sure that you don't have habit-forming medications, that you are staying away from drugs of choice, and that they are helping you with pain alternatives if physical pain is a concern. Also, in today's world, a lot of resources are online and telehealth. So that means that some of the concerns that we may have had in the past aren't as big of concerns as they are now, as long as we have valid internet. So things like transportation, childcare, or being in smaller communities no longer are in the way. If anything, you're able to connect in ways that you weren't before, which is actually a really beautiful part of this year that we've been going through together. Another thing that I would encourage is for people to look at MATCH, and that's medication-assisted treatment. So there's lots of different kinds of medications for individuals. Oftentimes, the ones we talk about are to help with stopping nicotine use, stopping alcohol use, and stopping opiate use. Those are medications that you would talk to a clinic or your prescribing doctor about, and they can help you with that moving forward. Something about medication to keep in mind is that medication isn't a fix-all. It's not this magic pill. What it does is it helps stabilize an individual, and we want to use that in conjunction with treatment and other help. So medication can be a wonderful tool, but it's one tool of several. Another thing that we would encourage is for individuals to get a better understanding of the addiction process, what this looks like, and some of the things that you may be experiencing. After an individual physically detoxes, oftentimes we feel that they're better and everything's going to be fixed, when the reality is that's the beginning. And the physical can be very difficult, but it's also a very short window in the recovery process. After an individual has physically detoxed, for up to 2 years, we have an emotional sobriety that's really going on, learning to connect with our emotions, learning how to do things for the first time, which means that our emotions are going to be all over the place, and we're going to be trying to figure things out as we go. So as we learn about the addiction process, as our loved ones learn about the addiction process, it can help us see that we are making progress and keep us from getting discouraged. As I mentioned, going through a recovery process is a process, and I say that several times because it's important to know that this isn't going to be one phone call or one conversation. It's going to be a series of phone calls. It's going to be a series of working with providers and appointments. It's going to be a series of dialogue. It's not just one thing. So it's important to not allow ourselves to get discouraged and use that as a reason to not continue in the recovery process. Thank you. I'm being given some water here. Thank you very much. So follow up. That is the most important part of learning how to advocate for ourselves and asking for help. We put a phone call out there, we wait a moment, then we call back. If someone calls back and they respond to us, we keep calling back and we keep that dialogue going. We don't allow it to be a one-time thing. Some of the resources that you'll see that'll be connected with this presentation are hotline numbers. I strongly encourage individuals to put hotline numbers into their phones. Go through, if you are able to erase and block numbers, I think that's a very important part of the process. Add in hotline numbers. You never know if that's the only person you're going to be able to call in the middle of the night, or if that's going to save your life or the life of someone else. Two resources that we have here in New Mexico that are actually really beneficial, and you'll also see them on the list, is there's an app for New Mexico Connections. That is a wonderful app. You can actually text and start connecting with someone immediately, and the 5 Actions program. Both of these are self-led, guided programs that can help you see resources, talk to someone in the moment when you need to, and learn how to use resources and tools. And the last thing that I want to say about advocating for ourselves is that recovery is not a one-size-fits-all thing. There are many pathways to recovery. Finding what works for you is really the most important part of the process. So I'm going to continue talking a little bit about resources. So with resources, we want to keep in mind that it really, like I said earlier, depends on individuals being able to connect with us. So it's not just us putting a phone call out there and saying, well, nobody called me back. Sometimes they did call back and they just couldn't get a hold of you. So making sure that you are following through with checking voicemails, checking with individuals that may be a voice message for you, and following up with your email. If you have an email, and if that's how you're doing that, make sure it's an active email that you can get into. So I'll start by talking a little bit about Turquoise Lodge, which is the facility that I represent. And it's important to keep in mind that we have several different kinds of resources within Turquoise Lodge. So Turquoise Lodge is a nicotine-free facility. At this point, we're not allowing candy into the facility, and we do have an isolation period at the beginning of a stay while we're awaiting COVID results. Whenever somebody calls, we make sure that they are aware of these things so that they are able to see if this is the best fit for them and if they feel that they're able to continue in the program. We also like to let people know that Turquoise Lodge is not an emergency hospital. Even though hospital is in our name, we focus on stabilization and helping people with substance use disorders. And we are not able to provide an admission day in order to help an individual obtain a release date. So if all of those are not a problem for you, what you would do is you would call, and our number will also be included, but I will give it out now. It is 505-841-9878. You press option 4, and then it'll take you through a series of prompts. If you are able to get a hold of somebody immediately, then they'll start the process. If not, please leave a message or call back and follow up if you haven't heard from someone, although we typically get back to individuals within 2 business days. So once we start and actually connect with a person, we do an intake. And that initial intake is a short questionnaire. We're asking about drugs of choice, we're asking about your medical history and medications, your mental health. We review the COVID process that we currently have, and we also want to make sure that this is the most appropriate level of care for an individual. If it's not, we will help refer you to a more appropriate level of care. Once that is completed, then the assessment is reviewed by a medical team. The medical team will let us know if you are appropriate for the facility or not, and if you are, we'll call you back and we'll get you set up to come into the facility, and that's usually within 2 weeks. Within Turquoise Lodge, there are several different programs. So we start out with a medical detox, and with our medical detox, it can be up to 10 days, but it completely depends on a person's substances that they've been using, as well as their medical need. So that doesn't mean that it's automatically going to be 10 days. Also, during this, you are medically managed and monitored by the nursing and medical providers. And staff will work with you to ensure that you have aftercare coordination. Then, if you want to continue, or if you feel that that's appropriate for you, and if the team feels that that's appropriate for you, we also have a social rehab. We let people know that our rehab is not considered a long-term program, and it can be up to 21 days, again, depending on an individual's needs. So throughout all of this resource process, we are looking at what an individual's needs are. And all providers do this, not just Turquoise Lodge. It's important to make sure that your needs are being met and that we are helping you in the best way for you and what's going on in your life. In our social rehab, the focus is stabilization and skills development. We are trauma-informed, which means that we are able to help an individual, and we're aware that trauma is a concern for many people, but we are not trauma focused. We don't really do what I call the deep dive. We're not digging in and we're not processing some of those old concerns, because we really want to help you stabilize and build a foundation. After an individual has built a foundation, later on in recovery, then we recommend you continuing the process with trauma work. We also are focusing on continuing structured support and transition planning. So that means the day that you leave, we're going to try and have appointments scheduled for you. Generally, we're looking to have a medical appointment scheduled. We want to make sure that you have resources such as 12 steps, which will also be included in the list that you guys will have access to. And if you want, we will help you schedule a counseling appointment. And we also are doing assessments with individuals and treatment planning to make sure that we're helping you in the best way that we are able to. All of our inpatient services, which means they're in the facility, are programming that include recreation therapy, a dietitian, group therapy, and individual sessions. We want to work on identifying triggers, education on the detox process, and really helping people establish and practice coping skills and emotional sobriety skills. We also have Zoom AA meetings and mindfulness meetings coming into the program. Another facility that, I have a coworker that's going to be joining us here in a moment if we have any more questions about the Turquoise Lodge process. We also have IOP, which is intensive outpatient programming. At this point, it is all telehealth, so we can reach all of the counties in New Mexico, and it is 16 weeks, 10 hours per week. Sometimes when people hear that, they get very overwhelmed and say, I can't do that. I generally remind people that our addictive behaviors are things that we're doing more than 10 hours in one day. So I would strongly encourage you to step back and allow yourself to have those 10 hours in a week for yourself and for your recovery as you move forward. Our current track is Mondays through Thursdays, 5:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. And our curriculum includes Matrix, DBT, Seeking Safety, Family Education. We have a group that family members can come and be a part of. And we're looking at stages of change. There's group therapy throughout the week. That's what those hours are. And then if you don't already have an individual therapist somewhere else, we can help you with individual sessions. So that's Turquoise Lodge in a nutshell. And our website is online. It's included in the resources if that's something that you are interested in. But keep in mind, Turquoise Lodge is one resource. There's so many resources in Albuquerque, and there's so many resources throughout the city, the state, the country, all over. So if we're not the best fit for you, we can help you find a resource that would be most appropriate for you. Another thing that I would like everybody to keep in mind when it comes to resources is that the majority of programs are voluntary. As I mentioned earlier, it is very important if we want someone to be a part of our team and know our information that we sign those releases of information, and an individual has to make the call. Family members can call and get information, but they cannot start the process. The individual seeking services has to start that process. Also keep in mind that if an individual is court ordered, that does not mean that they will complete the program if they choose not to. Just because they're court ordered does not mean that we have any kind of option to force them to do anything. There are lots of online and telehealth resources available. Professional resources tend to include counseling and treatment for mental health, medication-assisted treatment, and substance use. And recovery-based supports include faith-based, sober living options, 12-step meetings, and meetings such as LifeRing or Smart Recovery that have no faith component at all. It's all cognitive and about the way your brain works. It's looking at the science behind addiction. Also, in today's world, we are very lucky to have technology. I strongly encourage individuals to use technology to your advantage in recovery. That means using things like online meetings, YouTube, apps, podcasts. The information that we'll have attached has information on all of these options. And the last thing that I would like individuals to know is that family support is a huge part of this process. Addiction is a family disease. Everybody within this is connected and affected by what is going on when somebody is struggling with addiction. So that means that it not only is it important for us to communicate with our loved ones and let loved ones know what we're struggling with, it's important for family members to seek help as well. That would mean working on our own issues, which can include enabling, codependency, and boundary issues. There are also supports for that. A wonderful support is Al-Anon. Al-Anon helps individuals who are family members of individuals struggling with addiction. So all of these will be included, and for me, the most important part of this is knowing that you are not alone. There are people in the world who care. There are people in the world who want to help you. There are people in the world who've walked what you've walked and are able to show you what it looks like a little bit further down the road. I would like to end with another coping skill. So this one is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And this is a grounding exercise. Grounding exercises are meant to help us calm ourselves down. I picture literally grounding myself and planting my feet on the floor. So this one is a sensory grounding. We're focusing on our senses. So what we'll do is we take a deep breath, inhale through our nose, and exhale through our mouth. And we're gonna look around us. And we can do this in our head, we can do it out loud, doesn't really matter. But you're gonna look around you and you're gonna identify 5 things that you can see. Okay, now we're gonna take another deep breath. And now we're gonna look around and we're gonna identify 4 things that we can feel or touch. Like I can feel my bracelet on my arm. We're going to take another deep breath. Now we're going to identify 3 things that we can hear. We're going to take another deep breath. Now we're going to identify 2 things that we can smell or like the smell of. Take another deep breath. Lastly, we're going to identify 1 thing that we can taste or we like the taste of. And then we'll take 1 more deep breath. Thank you for doing that with me. Again, that's another quick little exercise that we can keep in our pocket for those moments when we get emotionally dysregulated. I always call it our freak out place. When I'm up here and I'm not quite sure what to do with my emotions, that and the breathing exercises that we started with are quick little tools that can help you. And lastly, I would like to thank everybody for being a part of this. Wings for Life, obviously, wonderful, wonderful resource, but the individuals watching this, the fact that you're here, the fact that you're letting yourself listen to this and you're giving yourself permission to do this is such a wonderful, wonderful gift. If you ever do any kind of treatment with me, you will hear me thank you at the end of our time. And I like to remind individuals that this isn't a punishment, it's not a burden, it's not a chore. It's a gift to you from you. It's an opportunity to choose your future over your past and an opportunity to choose yourself over your addiction. So thank you so much for listening to this. Please remind yourself that as you make changes, you can continue to move forward. In this moment, you are safe. In this moment, you can be sober. In this moment, you can be healthy. I'm so proud of you, and I encourage you to be proud of yourself along the journey. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Crystal. Isn't she amazing? Every time I'm around her, and I've been over at Turquoise Lodge when she's working with folks, and she's just so loving and kind and compassionate, and just is there to help. And everybody I know that is helping others with addiction, they have these wonderful characteristics, and thank you. Thanks for caring so much. I always close with a story. So tonight we're going to close with a story. It's called Eagles in a Storm. Did you know that an eagle knows when a storm is approaching long before it breaks? The eagle will fly to a high spot and wait for the winds to come. And when the storm hits, it sets its wings out so that the wind will pick it up and lift it up above the storm. While the storm is raging below, the eagle is soaring above it. The eagle does not escape the storm. It simply uses the storm to lift it up higher. It rises on the winds that bring the storm. So, when the storms of life come upon us, and all of us, of course, will experience them, we can rise above them by setting our minds and our belief to something better and higher. The storms do not have to overcome us. We can allow God's power to lift us above them. God enables us to ride the winds of the storm that bring sickness and tragedy and failure and addiction and a disappointment in our lives. But we can soar above that storm. Remember, it is not the burdens of life that get us down. It's how we handle them. So, if you are dealing with addictions today or know anybody that is, please reach out. On our website, we will have an incredible list of resources. I was just amazed, and I thought, wow, I'm so thankful it's on our website, because now I can tell people to go there and find all these wonderful resources. Also, if you go to our website, you're going to find the placemat that was created about addictions. And so I encourage you to go and find that, because that's important too. We've got all kinds of resources there for you because we want to be able to help you. So thanks for joining us tonight. I hope you've had a wonderful time. If you're with Facebook with us tonight, this is the end of our program. Now, if you're on Zoom, hang on, because we're going to go to breakout rooms in just a second. Thanks so much. Good night, everybody.